Welcome in to Extreme Talk, presented by Complete Real Estate, where integrity and experience matters. Want to thank you for tuning in today to the first of Championship Sundays here in the month of July. That's right, Championship Sunday in July. And no, this is not a baseball show. For those of you first time listening, obviously. But couple housekeeping things to get to off the top. Again, big thank you to Complete Real Estate, sponsor of the show. And then also want to give a big shout out to Fairlife Core Power Protein. Once again, I think this is the third year that they've wanted to be a sponsor with us and help us give some recognition to young men who have just absolutely awesome performances every single week, and lay it out there for their team. And obviously Core Power, one of the industry leaders in terms of recovery, post-workout, post-game, post-practice, whatever. 26 grams of protein, so just awesome amount of protein. So make sure go grab one wherever you can find them. I was in a gas station the other day and they had a whole lineup of them. So, but a big thank you to Core Power, and they're going to be teaming up with us this year to help recognize young men who, again, just deserve that recognition and that that kind of kudos. Speaking of Core Power, I'll mention them again in a second because I'm going to talk about what we're going to do with them this year. But first off, I mentioned this is Championship Sunday. So today and next Sunday, we're going to be talking to some coaches who won their conference championship games last year. Again, it's not a state championship if there's multiple conferences in your state, unless you play the other conference champion or champions and beat them. In that case, absolutely, state champion, but you're a conference champion. But we're going to talk to two coaches today, and then we'll talk to at least two coaches next week, maybe three, trying to figure out the scheduling with that. But very, very excited to get a chance to talk to these men that they've built some history. And of course, the two coaches today joining me at 4:15, we'll have Coach Tim Smith from the Evangel Christian School Lightning, and at 4:45, we'll have Coach Kyle Collins from the Freedom Cowboys. And of course, both those coaches, Coach Tim Smith winning the ACSC last year, Coach Kyle Collins winning the SEEC. And then they ended up playing each other for the national championship. They've played each other twice, actually, last 2 years. So it'll be fun to get a chance to talk to them. But housekeeping point, if you will. So obviously 8-Man Extreme going into the 10th year this season. And the growth over the last 2 years has just been awesome. And couldn't have done it without you folks. And of course, the multiple sponsors that we've had over the last couple seasons. It's really been great to see everyone rally around, and the crew members that have jumped on board and helped. Everybody goes through a different season of life, and at that point that they helped, that was the season they were in, and so very thankful to them for their help, no matter what their role was on the crew. But this year, things are going to be a little different. For the first time in 7 years, and this was not a lightly made decision, for the first time in 7 years, 8-Man Extreme will not be on the road every week this season doing a game. A lot of people have asked, well, why don't you just do one game? Maybe make it somewhere manageable. And there's always been the mentality of go big or go home. And over the last couple years, we've been able to go as big or bigger than we did the last year. And that's not going to be a possibility this year due to lack of sponsors. It's just not there. And I could do what I did last year and for the most part do it solo. Obviously, there were people helping out, running cameras. Whenever we'd go to a game, whoever would film the games for one of the teams would jump on and run the camera, and that was awesome, and really appreciate every person that did that. I think maybe a third of the games, somebody else was in there and helped, and obviously in Florida and conference championship games, for the conference championship, Spencer was able to jump in. I think he was there at Florida too. Yeah, he was there in Florida. We had a couple young men that were able to jump in for the championship games, conference championship games, and help out with that. And so there was help, but there wasn't a steady help, a constant help. And so, a lot of those games were just a lot of driving, a lot of traveling, and it was very taxing. And the decision was made at the end of last year that if that was the situation again this year, wouldn't go on the road and would just focus on doing the things that could be done every week to still keep it alive, still be able to give young men recognition. Just it wouldn't be full speed ahead like the last 7 years. And it's tough because the last 7 years since 2017, I get maybe 6 years, every Friday night, and I already had the broadcast schedule lined up. I was making some tweaks, making a couple little adjustments, but for the most part, it was set up. And I think there were 17 or 18 games on the schedule, and it was going to be awesome. A lot of cool football we were going to be able to see, and so yeah, that it won't be on the road every week. We'll still be doing Gatlinburg. We'll still do the Black Bear Brawl, still do Florida, and still do the All-American games in December. So and maybe some conference championships there in November. But in terms of week to week, there won't be a weekly broadcast of a game or 2 weekly broadcasts of a game. So that brought about Core Power and figuring out, okay, how are we going to team up this year? And of course, we've done Player of the Week the last couple seasons, had a sponsor for that, and really, really thankful for that. But so Core Power has decided us and Core Power have decided we're going to have them be the sponsor for the Player of the Week. This year we will be doing an offensive and defensive Player of the Week. And I know that's been a big deal the last couple of years because you got to weigh out, okay, this guy had an awesome offensive performance. This guy had an awesome defensive performance. How do you pick between the two of them? How do you pick who's the player of the week? And so we're just going to eliminate that problem. There's going to be an offensive Player of the Week as well as a defensive Player of the Week. And I think that'll be really, really cool to be able to highlight now 2 young men. And they'll still get the samples, the Core Power samples that we were giving them last year. They'll still get a T-shirt. We're designing the T-shirt now. So still doing some cool stuff. Still do the weekly show every Sunday, obviously to recap scores, recap the games, talk to coaches. There's still going to be Extreme Talk. But again, just won't be the game broadcast every single week. Who knows? I might drop in at a game here or there, just kind of watch one. Maybe bring a kid with me or something. But, excuse me. So a little bit of housekeeping there, just to kind of tell you all what's going on with this upcoming season. But like I said, Extreme Talk's still going to be here. We're going to do Player of the Week, and so we're going to have a lot of fun with that. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into, let me get him on the phone, into the interview for today. Get the ringtone, there you go. You got to have the full effect. Joining me now is the head coach of the Evangel Christian School Lightning. He is the 5-time defending national champions. He is the 1-time defending ACSE conference champions, and he has won that title 3 times in the last 5 years. Coach Tim Smith. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me.
Thank you, James. How are you?
Man, I've been running around a little bit, but it's good to slow down. Just so everyone knows, I tried to get us the first ever. I know a lot of people have listened to the show in the pool. I tried to get us the first ever interview from a pool, and it didn't happen. So, freshly sunbathed, Coach Tim Smith on the show.
Yeah.
So, Coach, obviously last year you guys were able to win that conference title after the last couple years of coming up just short. And you guys were able to go to Florida and get that national title and defend it against some really good teams. And I don't want to start it off negative, but going into last year, and of course this is Championship Sunday, so we're going to talk about the championships. Going into last year and seeing how the last couple years had gone with the teams that you were able to have, what was your message to the team at the beginning of the year to say, hey, look, we can do it on this big grand stage, but if we're not able to do it with our rivals in our conference, it has a little bit of a different message. What was your message to the team?
Yeah, that was the only thing we talked about. That was our goal all year, was getting that conference title back to Alabaster. Been a couple of years. Um, Ezekiel had really done a great job against us, and we pointed towards our conference title more than we talked about going to Panama City.
Right.
So it was big for us and our school and our program to get that title back.
Now, with the conference title, and you mentioned what Ezekiel had done. Of course, you had Lighthouse Homeschool in the mix, really coming up and getting bigger. How does it feel being in the conference and now knowing that obviously you guys have the top four in the playoffs, you have the first round of the playoffs and the championship. How is it knowing that first round? How do you keep your guys focused and knowing that first round is not going to be a cakewalk anymore?
Well, last year was pretty easy because it was Ezekiel, and we were not expecting that, of course.
Right, right.
But it was Ezekiel, so it wasn't real hard. Our kids really do a good job of, of focusing and doing what we have to do to get to the game, as we call it. We want to be in the game, and so they focus up pretty good. We work them all right.
Now, going into a year like last year, and as you go through the year, what are some of the things that you try to get your assistant coaches to do, maybe to help you to help keep the kids on track? Because you guys had 40 guys on your roster. You're one person trying to keep them all focused, and obviously the kids, and they're going to have moments. But is there something that you've tried to get your assistant coaches to help you do, or help you communicate to the kids to kind of keep everybody on the same page?
No, I don't have to worry about that. If you ever come to one of our practices, I've been blessed with great assistants, and of course, everybody knows Hagan Joyner as the offensive coordinator.
Yep, yep.
And of course, Clay Romano stepped in last year as the defensive coordinator. I turned it over to Clay because I had to go and coach the offensive line. And if you've ever been to one of our practices, it doesn't take long to find the passion from the guys that are there coaching. Coach Clay Romano, he is, as we like to say, we always kind of laugh because he gets a little boisterous at practice. We'll put it that way. And but and then you got Andrew Welch and Blake Thompson and Jack Donovan that are there with me, and Marty Black, our JV coach, comes up sometimes, and I am blessed to have a great group of guys who they know their role, they do it well, and the kids love them, and we have a good staff.
What do you going into the year? I know every team usually has a team message or a team word, team phrase. So going into each year, I'm sure you guys have had one. About what time of the year do you kind of think it up and come up with it, and then what usually do you get inspired from to come up with that?
Yeah, we've already got ours this year. Last year it was sold out and committed. And
Mm, mm.
to be honest, it came. I'm an Auburn guy, but it come from an Alabama guy named Rich Wingo, who was on a radio station here, a podcast,
Yeah.
and he played at Alabama and told a story about Coach Bryant and sold out and committed, and uh, so we kind of stole that one or borrowed it. We didn't steal it; we just borrowed it.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and this year's I get to, and it
Oh,
actually comes from my son, who one day I was at his house and something was said, and I said something to the point of I got to go do this, and he stopped me. He said, "You mean you get to, Dad?"
yeah.
I said, "What?" And he said, "You get to." And but it changed my vocabulary, so we've already got our little shirts, that they wear under their pads, and it already says hashtag I get to because we talk about it. The last week was our first week, and I told him, I said, "You get to play football at Evangel. We
Yep.
we get to go and compete against great teams like the Freedom Cowboys and Franklin and Lighthouse and Cary Christian. It's special." So yeah, we do. We try to get a little phrase and build off of it as the year goes.
Going into the multiple championship games that you've played and coached in, um, which team, a player, is there one that sticks out as maybe the most intense, the most just revved up going into one of those games, and then does someone come to mind as being the most calm, like that scary calm where you're like, oh boy.
You talking about for us? I
Yeah,
assume.
for you guys.
Yeah. Eli Whitfield was always kind of laid back, and believe it or not, Jet Lodge, he was really laid back most of the time. If you saw Jet,
Really?
if he really got to talking, and I'm just telling you, you didn't want him to do that. It's kind of like what they said, tugging on Superman's cape. Just leave him alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't mess with him. Don't trash talk him. Don't get him started. Uh, Probably revved up guy. I don't know if we got a big rah rah. Carson Donovan, a man of few words, but once he starts speaking, it's kind of like everybody's gonna listen to what Big Carson's got to say.
Right.
He's one of them, and of course you go, oh, I almost forgot. How could I forget? Tyler Henderson. He was the guy. He would get so revved up. He would give the rah rah speech, and if somebody needed waking up, or he would be the guy to do it. He loved it.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Over the 5 conference championships you won, I know the first one in 2018, you weren't at the helm of it, but you were on the team, I believe, correct?
No, what? No,
The-
I've only been the head coach at Evangel. I've never been an assistant.
Okay, so you were, but were you there in 2018? I can't remember.
Yes. That
Okay.
was my
All right.
first year.
So from 2018 to 2022, I'm going to put you on the spot. I need you to give me 3 guys that if you could put them back as a senior and put them on your team today, who do you got?
Man, that's impossible. I don't.
It,
There's been so many great players at Evangel.
okay, then let's go 5 then.
That makes it harder. I mean, you got. We've only had 2 quarterbacks since I've been there, and both of those kids, Tyler Henderson and Eli Whitfield. Of course, if I didn't say Jet Lodge, Jet may come look me up, because he was as good an athlete as I've ever coached. In fact, I told Jet in Panama City as he was coming off the field in the championship game, when he wanted to, Jet's probably one of the best athletes I've ever coached.
No doubt.
He was that good. But we've been blessed. God's blessed us with a lot of good athletes. It would be hard. I'd like to bring them all back, especially last year's bunch. After we lost so many, we'd like to bring a few of those back this year if we could.
Oh yeah. Now going into last year, you guys had the national championship I mentioned, but you guys weren't able. I mentioned you weren't able to get that conference. So, and I might have kind of asked this earlier, but getting ready for that season last year, where okay, the last 2 we haven't gotten this. Was there anybody on the team from the last 2 years, from those 2 years going into last year, maybe one of the seniors like Eli or something, that they kind of realized and were like the locker room leader and going, hey guys, this is our last chance to get this?
Oh yeah, it was probably Eli. Eli had never won a conference championship as a quarterback.
Yeah.
And the year that he was on the team, Tyler was the quarterback. So it was Tyler. It was Eli. He was that guy that would remind them, we've lost it 2 years in a row. We got to get it back. He was really good at keeping the kids focused on that.
Now, the teams that you've played in these championship games, and we'll just leave it at conference, because we won't talk about. Obviously, there's so many guys on the national championship level, but the guys that you've played in a conference championship game on the other team, if you could pick, let's say one guy to come over, because you've played some good ones. Is if you could pick one guy to bring him over?
That's it. Woo.
If you could pull off a transfer.
Anybody from Coach Kyle's team, because they're always well coached.
No, just conference.
Oh, just my conference?
Yeah, not national.
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know. Look at Ezekiel. They won 2 conference titles in a row and played for a national championship. They had some great athletes.
Yep.
Lighthouse, JJ's had some great athletes, and all the way down to East Central with Tony Pafumi last year. That kid could fly.
Oh yeah. There's a reason he's up at Oakland City University now.
That's right.
Playing Sprint.
That would be impossible.
Fair enough. I just had to see if somebody jumped out in
Well,
mine.
there's a bunch of them that jump into my mind, and some that we could never stop, like Matty and Ezekiel.
Oh
We could never
man,
stop him.
man, that had to be a nightmare to game plan for
It was. It
guys
was
like
tough,
him,
man.
Austin Gay.
Austin. Oh yeah, how can I forget Austin? He was probably the best athlete that we've seen all around. He didn't just play quarterback. He was a running quarterback, but then he went and played defense and would knock your head off.
Mm, mm,
So he was a good one. Yeah, our conference has really had some really really good athletes, and like you said, we have several in our conference playing at the next level now.
well, and then you look at your conference and the Rising Stars game last year in Gatlinburg. Your young quarterback Will Welch was up there on the same team with um, Elliot Knowles
Yeah,
from Lighthouse. So both underclassmen, both starting in the Rising Stars game. It only showed, and then you both had a ton of guys on those rosters. So it seems like, and I think East Central had some guys up there too.
they did.
So it seems like the future of what you're going to have to compete against is it's not going down anytime soon.
No, we really do. We really believe, and this is not a knock on any other conference, but if you just look at our conference from top to bottom, it's as tough as any, if not the toughest. I mean, you got to face Ezekiel, you got to face Lighthouse, and then you got East Central who beat both of those last year.
Yep, yep,
Then you got Southern Christian. I'm telling you now, don't blink on them. They're coming.
yep.
Got some really good young athletes. In fact, they beat us in junior high last year like 30-0.
Ooh,
It was bad. Oh yeah, they're coming.
ooh, man. And they're down there in Opelika, right?
Yeah, you can just say Auburn.
Did I get that one? Auburn. Okay.
Yeah,
I
it is Opelika, not Opelika. Yeah, and it is Aniana, not Onita.
I got the Aniana last week. I got that
Yeah,
one.
you
I
did.
know
I
that.
thought JJ told you got it right.
Hey, the national ones. I want to switch over to the national ones in Panama City Beach. And of course, the first one at NACA in Dayton, Tennessee. Kind of special situation, but those national championships. When you guys get a chance to get geared up for this, I think I've asked you this before, but looking at the way the schedule works out, where the week before you guys are playing for conference, you get a week off, and then you're playing a game on Saturday and a game on Monday, with a day of rest in between. What are some of the key things that you think have to be done to keep the guys on track, maybe get them healthy, but still let them enjoy the trip?
Yeah, I don't.
Because
It's
you've
really
done
just by
because you've
God's
done this
grace.
because you've done this 4 times.
Yeah, well, it's God's grace and not allowing us to have many injuries since we've been up there or down there. We've had a couple banged up here or there, but nothing major that they couldn't play on Monday. Uh, so they're in shape from playing all year, and we back off of our conditioning late in the year. Uh, so it's just really it's God's grace that nobody's been hurt because in football, as you know,
Oh
you're
yeah,
just one play away from being banged up and not being able to play tomorrow.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Now, 2 years ago, 2021, you guys played Freedom for the national title. Of course, that team was stacked and they had a good team. Um, if at the beginning of last year, I had you pick 3 teams that maybe you would face for the national, would they have been on the list?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Mm.
Coach Kyle and them do such a great job, and they've always there's two things you can count on when you play Freedom. Well, really three. One, they're going to be well coached. They're going to be tough as nails, and they're going to hit you in the mouth.
Yep.
And that's Kyle Collins.
And I'm going to assume that, despite you guys being the only team they have not been able to beat the last couple years. So you guys roll into that game. You haven't lost to them in a couple years. But I'm going to assume every time that you guys play them that game is not taken lightly.
Oh no, you can't take that one like that. The last 2 years, I mean, it's been probably we've both been undefeated, if I'm not mistaken, when we faced each other,
Yep. Yep.
and so it was huge. And then you get to Panama City, and we had lost one game the year before or two, and they had not lost any. And then last year we were both, they had one loss and we didn't have any. So yeah, we don't have to pump our kids up to play Freedom
Oh
ever.
yeah. Well, and just the proximity too is it's such a great rivalry between the two.
Oh yeah, right up
It's what it's
565,
what 2 hours,
about 2 hours.
about
Yeah,
2 hours. Yeah, yeah.
we got to make that trip this year.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Go up there to McGuckin.
Yeah, that's it.
Um, you look at the teams you've had to play for the national the last couple years. So you had Christian Community in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
Ezel Hardy in 2019, which that game
Mm,
speaks for itself. That was wild.
I'm still tired.
You had Ezekiel in 2020, and then Freedom 21, 22. Is there anybody that you look at over those couple years and you go, man, I wish we had had a chance to play them for a national title? Not taking anything away from the teams that you played, because they all gave you a fight. But is there anybody you look at and go, man, I wish we had a chance to play them with the team that we had and the team that they had?
Yeah, there's been a couple of years, where which I still always say we had the best teams in Panama City, but Russell Christians had some really good football teams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we'd have liked to had a chance to play them, but because of basketball reasons, they couldn't make it down, and I understand that. And then the Franklin team last year, I know Coach had a really good team. We're actually coming up to Tennessee to play them this year.
Yep. Yep.
We're excited to play them. We'd like to play some teams from out west.
There you go. There's some good ones. There's some good ones for sure.
Yeah.
Going into this year, you guys obviously coming off two trophies sitting in the complex up there. Those trophies, how strongly are you trying to impress on your guys that those trophies don't mean diddly for this year?
Well, you should have been in the dressing room Monday.
Mm.
Because it's like I tell them, those trophies and rings and plaques, all they do is collect dust.
Yep.
In 10 years, nobody's going to remember who won it. And so it's all about what are we doing today? How are we getting better today? And how are we progressing from day to day to try to play for our conference championship and to try to be invited to go back to Panama City? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not an easy thing. I mean, we've got Franklin, we've got Freedom, we've got Lighthouse, Ezekiel, the Carolina Wildcats are coming back down to play us, and then we got the rest of our conference game. We got Evangel Montgomery, who won the AISA state championship last year.
Oh yeah.
So we've got a tough road to hoe, and they know it. So we just tell them every day, just one day at a time, just keep progressing.
How do you find that balance between, because everyone knows the hard nosed coaches that you look back and go, man, I'm glad I'm not around that guy anymore, and obviously they have their uses, but then you have the other side of the coaches where they just want to be the buddy and the friend, and in 10 years the guys come back and they want to see him and talk to him. How do you find the balance between being those two types of coaches, because they both have their uses?
Well, I'm an old school guy, and I believe in the old Pat Dye method that you know do I want to be their friend when they graduate? Absolutely. Do I love them today? Absolutely. But right now, I'm the guy in their life that's trying to help their parents turn them into young men. And some days that day turning into a young man's tough. And
Exactly.
some days at practice it's tough. And we work them extremely hard, just like everybody else does. I'm not saying we have the magic potion, but that's what we do. So, we just believe that if you keep working, good things will happen.
I know you guys have a great nucleus of parents, and with all the championship wins, of course, running a program takes money, and making trips, and keeping things looking nice and well maintained. The way you guys' place looks. Okay, that's not cheap at all. Can't be cheap. With the championships that you guys have won, how awesome is it to have your parents rally behind you guys, and just because it seems like a real family effort to make all of that happen. It doesn't seem like just two or three people.
There's no way two or three could do it. It is, and we like we like to say it's faith, family, football,
Yep.
and in that order. And we try to keep it in that order. But as a coach, sometimes I might bounce it out of order sometimes. But we really do try to keep it that way. And our families, they are so bought into what we do, as you can tell down in Panama City. But it's not just in Panama City for us. You can ask Kyle, when we come up to Huntsville this year, we'll have a crowd. They follow us wherever we go. Our cheerleaders, I think she's got 22 this year, 23
Oh,
on the
wow.
varsity, just
Yeah.
on the varsity. They'll all be there. Their parents will be there. We have the color guard now, and it's grown. I think we have 10 or 11 girls that are doing that, majorettes, and they'll all be there. So it's really been a great family atmosphere. And if you've been to Panama City, you see the end of the
Oh, it's a
year.
packed house.
It is, and it's kind of a celebration for us. We do our awards banquet there at Panama City for the end of the season.
Mm. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do this year. Of course, tough conference, tough opponents, and then possibly the chance to defend your title there in Florida. But coming up next is you guys having the second annual ACSE Media Days. That's such a cool event. That's really cool that you guys were able to start that and get a chance to know the teams in your conference.
Well, it was really just by chance. We were sitting at our football meeting last year, and Coach JJ from Lighthouse, he said something to me about, Coach, we should try to do that next year, because in our area, AL.com does a media day, but for some reason we're never invited, and that's fine. So we just did our own. And I said, well, why we got to wait till next year? I said, I bet my guys, we have a YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
And I threw it out there to them, and buddy, Scott Stafford went to work, and some of the moms, and it'll be even better this year because he's had time to plan for it. And we've asked all of our local papers, or I know I call them papers, our local media to come and be a part of it. Don't know if any of them's coming. I know ours, the Shelby County Reporter, said he was going to do his best to be there.
That's awesome.
There's a guy from Tennessee that may come down. I don't know.
Now we'll see. We'll see. Coach, I appreciate you, and good luck this year.
Yes, sir, James. Thank you for all you do.
Yes, sir. We'll see you.
All right. Bye.
That's Coach Tim Smith from Evangel Christian School. Always good to get a chance to talk to him. And you've seen some coaches that have success, and it's way lodged into their head that success is just so. You can tell it's really gone to the head. That's not Coach Smith at all. One of the most down-to-earth people. Really enjoy getting a chance to talk to him. And I mentioned at the end of the interview there that the ACSC having their second annual media day. It's August the 2nd. I believe 10 a.m. is the start time, and of course that'll be on the ACSC YouTube channel. And them doing that for the first time last year, and of course the SEC had just been started, and it would have been awesome to be able to do that, but just the timing wasn't working out. This year, the timing has worked out, and so on August the 5th at 2 p.m., we will have the first ever SEC Media Day, Southeastern Extreme Conference Media Day, and it will be hosted right here on the 8-Man Extreme YouTube channel. And we'll have, hopefully we'll have all 6 coaches. We'll have a couple players from each team. And just kind of, we're going to copy their format. I love the format. So we're somewhat going to copy that. And just give you a chance to get to know, and get to see these coaches and these players. And it'll be awesome. It'll be really, really cool. A big thank you to Complete Real Estate for hosting it. Here at the office, and so we'll get it all lined up. Might even bring back a couple people to help with that from the years past. But so that's coming up August the 5th at 2 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel, and then the ACSC will have theirs on their YouTube channel on August the 2nd at 10 a.m. So be sure to try to catch both of those. Coach Smith mentioned Scott Stafford with Evangel Christian. He's kind of behind the broadcast, and that has been the last couple years really gotten them to the next level. I think they used to be just radio broadcast, and then they were able to upgrade and jump to YouTube, do some video broadcasts. I know he has a whole crew of people with him that help him pull that off. It's really, really cool to see how they do it each week because they do go on the road for the away games, and then seeing what they're, it's one thing when we go on the road, very kind of a neutral party, just trying to make it happen. People are very gracious to us, and they're gracious to them as well. But usually they have to kind of figure a few more things out on their own. So it's always cool to see the setup they have, whether it's out of the back of a pickup truck, which we've done before. I've done it. Or bring some scaffolding with you or something, maybe a lift. It's always cool to see what kind of rigging they get set up to pull those broadcasts off, even for JV games. So it's always cool through the season to catch one of their games if it's on. Tuesday night you're wanting to watch a little football, the old JV football's on, and you get to see the future of the two teams that are playing. So anyway, so very excited about those two media days. I think it'll be a really, really cool experience. And again, as you go through the year, you'll hear the names of these kids, and this kind of helps you put a face with the name of a couple kids from each team. And, some of the leaders, some of the guys that are going to be the future of the team or, are going to be in that role this year. So that'll be really, really cool. But, again, I want to give a big thank you. I mentioned Complete Real Estate. Hosting that event, and really, really appreciate them doing that. And obviously, being the presenting sponsor for Extreme Talk, I've had the opportunity to use them. When my wife and I bought our first house, being first-time home buyers, everything was kind of confusing, and they just really simplified it down. And it was really, really cool to see that process play out and see that work through. So big thank you to Complete Real Estate, where experience and integrity matters. And now I'm going to get the next coach lined up. Let me see if I can't get him on the phone. We'll get the dial tone. There you go. It's never complete until you get that.
Hey, James.
Coach Kyle. Joining me now is Coach Kyle Collins from the Freedom Cowboys. Coach, I appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Hey, I appreciate you asking me to jump on.
So, Coach, this is Championship Sunday, the first of two Championship Sundays. We're talking to head coaches that have won championship titles. You guys played for two championship titles last year. And so I want to ask you, going into last year, first year, you guys were able to jump in the SEC, and you guys had played for the national title the year before. So going into 2022, you had guys that were on that team. Is there a message that you tried to communicate to those young men about what they needed to get done last year? Coming off of the kind of year that 2021 was.
No, absolutely. I think it's tougher after you come off a really successful year. And the messaging that we had prior to last year was, hey, guys, it's a brand new year. You've been successful. And when you're successful, everybody wants to beat you, so they're going to give you their best.
Yep.
And quite honestly, James, it wasn't until about the third or fourth game that some of my kids finally got their feet on the ground and realized that they weren't the greatest thing that football had ever asked for. It was a process. I mean, we won the first three games, won them handily, but it was very frustrating. And we, about the third or fourth game, they started realizing, hey, this is something that we've got to be working at, and they ultimately did, and we ended up having a very successful year.
You guys haven't made many trips like the game to come up and play Providence last year that you guys made, and then the way that game went, was that kind of a wake up moment for some of you guys?
It really was. As great as Oliver Johnson was last year, I benched him after that game.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that his focus was not where it needed to be. Now he quickly recalibrated, and was a dominant force throughout the year.
Oh yeah.
But he wasn't the only one. You've hit the nail on the head. That was probably the wake up game. We really should have dominated that game. We didn't, and I think when we left there, we didn't feel real good about the win.
Mm, mm. Now, you guys, over the last couple of years, having the opportunity to play for those national titles and the conference championship last year, you also were able to kind of pull some kids, and I know you guys do an awesome job of giving kids in the Huntsville area a chance to play football, but you guys were also able to help out kids from another school, from Riverside Christian there in Fayetteville. And I know we've talked about this before, but when those guys came in, what was the first conversation with them like? Because obviously you guys kind of have the ball rolling, and you're going in, like I said, you're going into an unknown. First year of a conference, you guys hadn't been in a conference, since before I started kindergarten. So, what was there something that you guys, not just those guys, but your guys in general, something that you tried to communicate to them?
Well, first, when Riverside decided to not have a team, we reached out to them, and some people said we reached out for selfish reasons, and maybe it turned into being selfish reasons, but we really just reached out to their coach and said, hey, if you got any kids that want to play ball this fall, just let us know.
Absolutely.
A couple of kids, I think we only had 3 that showed up, and the first day I said, y'all are welcome here. You're part of this. Just jump in and let's have some fun. And I told the rest of the kids, they're not the Riverside kids anymore. They're Freedom Cowboys. And so for 2 years, while the Riverside program was non-existent, we offered an opportunity to some kids to do what they love to do. As far as getting in the conference, it was really something I left up to the kids.
Right.
I just went into them, told them that we had this offer, and they were wonderful. They said, hey, if that means more games, we want to be involved. And I said, then we're jumping in with both feet. And what people don't realize is you work year round to play football, and you only get 12, 13, 14 opportunities to actually play.
Right.
And I don't think people realize how much work goes in the off season, and certainly during the season, for just 12 days to play football. So I thought their reaction was great. Hey, we get to play more games. Let's go. And that's what we ended up doing. And then it was rallying cry, and it really turned out well, large part thanks to you, thanks to the other teams. It was something to play for, and provided motivation, especially in those conference games.
It was a lot of fun. I think the first year of the conference worked really well. Obviously, you guys in the Heat clinched your first spot, but then the second seed of both divisions, it came down to the last week of the season. The game played the last week of the season between the two, between those teams. It came down to that. I think it played out really well.
It did.
Going into last year's championship game conference, and then the 2 national championships you guys have gotten to play for, is there somebody that comes to mind when you think about the most revved up, most energetic guy going into that? And then who comes into your mind when you think about maybe someone who was the calmest, like that scary calm of, oh boy, look out?
Well, I'm going to tell you, TJ Lorio last year in the conference game was a little bit probably put out that he didn't make all conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see a steely desire to show the world, quote unquote, that I deserve to be named. And then you saw in the conference championship, he just turned it on. And so that's the guy that I remember the most from last year, of having such motivation to show everybody that, he was supposed to be a part of that.
Right.
And that's not taking anything away from the coaches. Coaches just vote how they vote. But it did provide a little added motivation that I'm sure that Tennessee Heat wished that he didn't have that night. So
that's the kind of guy you really don't want to get set off.
No, TJ was a guy, and you saw him play for 3 or 4 years. He was young. He was good when he was young, but man, when he flipped the switch, he was dynamic. And he was fun to watch. And that day, it was really very satisfying to see him. When you say he was very quiet and you say, oh no, that's what you said. That's exactly what we saw in him that week of practice, and was, hey, this kid's about to go off. And he did. Yeah. Fantastic.
Who was your loudest or most most revved up guy
Well,
going into some of those games?
Tristan Martone was the loudest every day. Didn't
I
matter
should have
who we
guessed
were
that.
playing.
I should have guessed
Yes,
that.
he was. You love guys with passion, and because you got guys that you got a lot of fire under, and then you got some you need to pour cold water on. You poured a whole lot of cold water on Tristan Martone. Uh, but let me tell you something. I love the kid, and we went through some battles, but man, it was a joy to see that guy. Because I mean, he was fired up every day, every play,
Yeah.
and I've never coached a kid like that, and I never saw him get tired. Never saw him get tired.
Mm. Well, going into this year, and as everybody kind of gets ready to start practices and everything, you've got the one trophy back in Huntsville, and you've had the chance to play for two trophies in Panama City Beach. So going into this year, and you're talking to your guys, some of them were on those teams the last couple years. What are you trying to communicate to those guys going into this year of, hey, last year's accomplishments don't mean anything?
Well, if you go back and look, 95% of all of our production on both the offensive and defensive side have graduated. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
we got a brand new team this year. I mean, James, I got 5 linemen and none of them's got a driver's license yet. Okay, so we've only got 2 returning people who have played in competitive, meaningful football games. So what you got is a bunch of inexperience, but I've got a good core group of kids, right?
Right.
That I think have some talent. They don't have experience. And I had a conversation with them last week at conditioning. I said, guys, you're going to be a lot better at the end of this year than you are at the first of the year, because people discount experience, but it is so valuable.
Oh, yeah.
So valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Because the communication between coach and player is a lot easier. The guys understand how to just stay at a certain level during the game. And we got a bunch of kids today that's never experienced any of that. So we start off in a conference game, and quite honestly, I don't know what we're going to be like this year. But I do think we've got a good foundation to be a good football team at some time, whether it's game 5 or whether it's next year, I don't know yet.
Absolutely. You've had a very important part of your coaching staff the last couple of years. He has moved on and had the opportunity to get another job and take over a situation. How cool is it to see assistant coaches like Brett Oliver move on, and to know that you've been able to just be contribute a little bit to their life and to their career?
Well, many years ago, I had a dream and a prayer that one day my coaching staff would be made up of former players, and it is that, and it was that last year.
Exactly.
And to have a young man who desires to be a coach have that opportunity, and he called me. Listen, 3 weeks ago, he called me and he said, "Hey, I've got this opportunity and I want to talk to you about it." And I'll tell you what I told him. I said, number one, the selfish side of me, he says, "What do you mean calling me 3 weeks before the season starts?" I said, but the God side of me, the Holy Spirit said, this is a great opportunity for a young man who deserves it. Now, I'll tell you something about Brett Oliver. I am a control freak by nature.
Yeah.
He is the only coach that I've ever had on my staff that I said, it's yours. I'm going to sit over here and watch. And I occasionally would have something to say, but I knew he was very prepared, knew what he was doing. Had a very instinctive knack for calling the right calls at the right time, and I let him run it. And I think all of that experience obviously helped him, gained his confidence, and it's a big loss, no doubt about it. Okay, but
yeah, absolutely.
Look, we're here to just have an impact on the kids and the people who come in and cross our path, and hopefully, I've given him something to carry on. He probably knows a whole lot more about football than I do. That's not what I hope I passed on to him. I hope I passed on to him, some life stuff that he can work with and be impactful on the young people he has.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you guys, your team is in a unique situation, and there's other teams like it, but not a whole lot, where you're not just coaching a team that has young men that are all from one school or all together. You've got some homeschoolers, you got some private school. Your organization exists to give young men the opportunity to play football, and at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, that's awesome. Is there something or maybe a couple things that you try to, and I again talked about this with the Riverside guys, but before that, you guys were doing this, and you guys have been doing this a long time. Is there something that helps you guys kind of get everybody on the same page? Or does it just take time throughout the season as guys get a chance to sweat together and bleed together and just kind of get that camaraderie built up?
It's really, I said this at our banquet last year. The last 2 years we were 24-4 and only got beat by one team in 2 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then we'd won the conference championship, been to the national championship, blah blah blah, and this was our record, 24-4. And I said, guys, you don't understand that you're the first time half of you meet each other is the first day of practice.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have a traditional place. You don't go to school together. All of this. It's really, to your point, in preseason we will either gel or we won't gel,
Right.
because it'll be the first time that many of these young men have ever been around the other men.
Hmm.
And it takes a little while for everybody to start to get on. But football is a fabulous game. My success is totally dependent on your success, and vice versa. So it quickly molds into, hey, we've got to be a team. I share this with the kids, and I'll share it with them again. It's just like the body of Christ.
Yep.
We all have different gifts, and when we work our gifts together is when we are so powerful. And and football is much like that. If everybody knows their gift and knows their role and starts loving on each other and realizing that our success is dependent upon each other, it starts to happen. And we've had years that most years it has happened. Some years it hadn't come together as well.
How valuable is it to have one of those senior players and one of those leader players that he's kind of the glue guy. He can relate with anybody. He can get on the same page with anybody. How valuable is it to have that kind of a guy?
It's immeasurable, because let me tell you something: leadership starts in the locker room. It starts on the field. Coaches can scream and holler and say all they want to, but if you don't have a couple of kids who are willing to step up, step out, and not lead with their mouth but lead with their actions, then it's impossible to bring a team together. We've got a couple, and just a couple, that every year I meet with the not just the seniors but all the guys that are big contributors from the year before, and I basically say, this is your football team. I'll
Yep.
be back next year. You
Yep.
won't be back next year. What legacy are you going to leave, and what regrets are you going to have? And I try to really say the best leadership is not me. If we had a conditioning program this summer, and we had a couple of kids weren't showing up, and I tell them, I'm not calling them. You
Yep.
call
Yep.
them. We can go 2-8. I'll be back next year to go 8-2. Right? You're
Hmm.
not. So if you challenge, and I found out with the young people, you challenge them and set expectations, and more times than not, they'll strive to reach those expectations.
Mm. Yeah, and it seems like when you don't have that kind of guy, or you have the opposite of that kind of guy, where they're always starting some kind of problems, and it's not a good problem. It seems like the opposite of that can be just as deadly of a cancer as having that guy who is the glue guy.
We're not going to have the opposite. Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to have kids who do it the right way. I tell them every year, look, I said, I don't kick kids off the football team.
Yeah.
You decide that you no longer want to play. And what I'm saying there is, we don't have a whole lot of rules, but you're gonna have a great attitude. You're going to give great effort. And you're going to be here on time. Blah blah blah.
Right.
If you got a kid that's causing trouble, I usually take him off, have a talk with him. If that don't straighten it up, I get some guys to talk with him. If that doesn't straighten it off, he's no longer on the team. We're not going to have any cancers, because really what we're trying to do is we're trying to prepare young men to become godly men in the future. And
Absolutely.
if you've got a cancer, as you called it, or you got a Dutchman in your locker room, you got to get rid of that,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
that can really ruin a lot of things. Now, certainly everybody's not perfect. Everybody doesn't have it, but this entire world we live in is about self worship now. And football place, there's no place for self worship. It's all unselfishness.
Absolutely.
That's the only way it works.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You talk about having former players be able to come back and be coaches, and that's who your coaching staff was last year. But if can you the three guys come to mind if you could move them back, and let's say you were outside of a conference. Let's say you could move them back to being a senior one more time and put them on a team. Put them on your team. Are there three guys that come to mind?
Well, I don't want to leave out anybody, but the number one guy that you would want would be Joshua Butler.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we call him Baby because he had a bigger brother, so we called him Baby Butler.
Yeah.
And a couple of times last year, I remember not only coaches but also players saying, we ain't got no Baby. And he was kind of a guy that just elevated everybody. And I even had a young man tell me anytime you saw Baby in the huddle, you knew you had a chance to win. And really it was not because of his athletic prowess. It's because of his heart, the way he played the game. Obviously, Oliver Johnson from last year is one of the best football players I've ever coached. I think when he and Beebe were on the same team, Beebe was the leader and Oliver was the guy who just did what he's supposed to do. Last year, it required Oliver to grow up and be a leader, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some guys from the past that you wouldn't know and I wouldn't know that they're just solid as a rock guys that but there's a dozen of them that if you said, hey, you can pick from this, all your players, there's about 10 or 12 that I'd say, let's line them up. I'd go to war with them anytime.
And that seems like it's so valuable, and it's that's really cool that there's that many guys that came through the program and left that kind of a legacy. What you talked about earlier, the legacy that you leave. They left that kind of legacy to where they could come back and do that, and they have that reputation.
And most of the guys who played with those guys would tell you the same thing that I told you. They were rock solid human beings. They were rock solid people.
Absolutely. Going into that those national championship games and you the 1 year you're just coming off of being independent last year, you had the one trophy under your belt. Was there 1 year that was harder than the other to get the guys focused, or was it the same? And then, if that's the case, what is one of the biggest things that you do and your assistant coaches do to get them focused?
I think what we kind of tell them is you have this opportunity and treat it as a business trip and an opportunity.
For sure.
And I share with them regret. Regret's a terrible thing, right?
Yeah.
And I share with them, go out there and do it all the right way. Play as hard as you can, every down, every play. Prepare yourself the right way, because there's going to come a time that you are going to have to look back and say, even though the outcome didn't happen the way I wanted it to, I wouldn't do it any differently. And that's really the message that I wanted them to know is, if you go out and just lay it on the line and play as hard as you can, and you still come up short, you can live with that. You don't like it, and it's very disappointing, but you can live with it. And actually, after the past championship when Evangel, the clock went to 3-0, I had a kid, Tristan Martone, who walked up and said, "Coach, you're right." I said, "I'm right about what?" He said, "It didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but we did everything we could do." And he'll be fine. He'll be fine with that. And that's really the motivation that I say about going down there. It's an honor to go down there. It's an honor to be good enough to be invited down there. And you just go out there and you do your thing, and whatever happens, happens. Now we obviously the last 2 years we've gone down there and run into that juggernaut Evangel, and somehow, some way, we believe we're going to beat them every time we play them.
Right.
And somehow, I will tell you a funny story, though. I'll tell you a funny story.
All right.
For the 2 weeks going up to that game, I basically said, guys, every time we play Evangel, something happens. They run a kickback, they get a pick six, they do something that that we don't recover from.
Right.
I said, let's go ahead and assume that's going to happen. It's going to happen. When it happens, we're going to keep our composure. So Oliver and I, for 2 weeks, just preached composure, 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 composure. After the game, a young guy come up to me, Tristan again, and said, "Hey, you know when I knew it was over, Coach?" And I said, "No, when?" He said, "About the third quarter, when you and Oliver screaming at each other and you benched him." He says, the two guys had been preaching composure had completely lost their composure. So we laugh about that all the time.
Oh, man. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me, and I'm excited to see what you guys do this year and defending SEEC champions. It seems like the conference is going to be a little bit tougher this year, but we'll see how it plays out. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, sir. That's Coach Kyle Collins from the Freedom Cowboys and 2022 SEEC champions. Good conversations today with both those men. A lot of respect for them and the job they do with their programs and those young men. I'm not going to spoil who's coming on next week, but I am very excited to get a chance to talk to them. I think it'll be another good round of conversations. A couple things real quick from last week's show. Of course, we went through the landscape of 8-man, what it's looking like with teams and conferences and where they're lining up. So first off, let's go to South Carolina. Mentioned that Red Rose Academy was going to be in the SIFA. Did get an update this week. Shout out to Coach Josh Whiting. They are moving back. Red Rose is moving, I believe, moving back to Charlotte, North Carolina, something to that effect. And so they will not be in that conference this year. And then also here in Tennessee in the TSIAA, Lighthouse Christian, I mentioned they're listed as part of the TSIAA. They will not have a team this year, and they are actually their guys are going over to Franklin Classical School, one of the members of the SEC, and so the Lighthouse guys will have an opportunity to play on that Franklin Classical team and kind of chip in and help out over there with the Knights and Coach Steve Adams. And it's great because Coach Brian Hollis, Coach Adams go way back to 2019, maybe before that, but I know 2019 they were the two coaches up at the All-Star games we used to do in Dayton, Tennessee at the NACA, and just have a good relationship, able to make this happen and give these young men the opportunity to play football. That's what it's all about, is giving these guys a chance to better themselves and better their situations and possibly even their futures. So wanted to give those couple updates. Again, to recap from earlier in the show, if you were just joining, on August the 5th, we'll be doing the first ever SEC Media Day. It'll be at 2 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel. And then on August 2nd, you can catch the ACSC Media Day over on the ACSC YouTube channel. So be sure to tune into both of those. And then, again, I talked about it at the top of the show. We will not be on the road every week this season doing a broadcast. Just due to lack of crew, lack of sponsors. It's just not going to happen. We will still be doing the show. We'll still have Extreme Talk every Sunday at 4 p.m., and we'll talk to coaches. We'll recap what happened the week before. We'll talk about what's coming up the next week, and just going to have some good football talk. And then Fairlife Core Power and Extreme Talk is presented by Complete Real Estate. And then Fairlife Core Power, they are jumping on board to sponsor the offensive and defensive players of the week. And so we'll be splitting 2 different Player of the Week awards between offense and defense. And those young men will still be getting samples. They'll still get a T-shirt. And, of course, we'll announce them every week. So double the young men getting recognized every week. Well, the same amount if you count in the game of the week. So, but really, really thankful to Core Power for wanting to be a part of that and really, really get that going. So I think that just about does it. Let me double check and make sure there's nothing else. I want to give a big thank you to Coach Tim Smith and Coach Kyle Collins for jumping on the show today. 2 conference championship winning coaches, two coaches who have played for a national title, played each other for a national title, and it's always fun to get a chance to talk to them. A lot of respect for them. But that'll do it for Extreme Talk, presented by Complete Real Estate, where integrity and experience matters. We'll see you next week right here for Extreme Talk.